Hey YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I do 3D printing stuff, sort of, kind of. And if you are returning, thank you. We just passed, I think, 1,100 subscribers, which is awesome. I never thought I'd even get there. It's been less than a year. But today's just a little bit of an update video, and then I'm going to do a top 10 of my 3D printing gadgets and tools and things that I use all the time that I think everybody should have, or at least consider having. I'll leave links down in the description below for what I can find. They won't be affiliate links, they'll just be there in case you want to find them. Other than that, where have I been? I moved from Washington to Idaho. I'm now mostly set up in Idaho. Everything is going relatively well, I would say. The 3D printing room is coming along. The office is sort of getting there. I have my main computer set up right here that I use for most of the 3D printing, and then the office laptop back there I haven't even touched. I haven't gotten back into any of that yet. So this is my first video back since August, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna give you a little room tour. It is a mess, and I'm cleaning it as I tell the wife so I don't get in trouble, but it's not going anywhere. So I'm gonna give you a little tour. Don't mind the mess, deal with it, and I'll be back. All right, so as you walk in the room, first thing here is my massive boxes of trash. I have ordered a ton of filament and done a ton of stuff. It just keeps piling up and I can't get rid of it fast enough. That's a new printer in box. That's a P1S. That's a Christmas present that I'm not supposed to know about, but there's no place to put it. Desk is set up there. These are the gadgets that I'm gonna go over that we'll cover. Mess right now, don't worry about it. The A1 minis are printing and this is a mess as well. I just don't have anything set up. P1S right there is not printing. Wally, he's not electronic, don't worry. I'm not making a video on that. He's just there and those are the tracks I need to assemble him. Bunch of mess back there. Pumpkin, her AMS broke, so I'm gonna get a new AMS part made for this, or I have it coming and I'll make a video replacing it. Filament rack, very filamenty and very racky. This is where I'm gonna end up putting spare parts. I just need a better way to store everything. Currently it's just a pain. I have Shadow down here, printing with 2 AMSs on it. They just didn't fit over there. I tried an AMS riser, I didn't like it. So yeah, it's on a 2-day print. What are we at? Focus, 36 hours left, not bad. Printing some Christmas trees, and you guys will see what that is because I'll assemble it in a video and I'm sure you guys will like that. And of course we just have the wall, and all this is gonna change and move and be different because all my printers are gonna end up going on this wall eventually, and I plan to start doing reviews on other brands of printers other than just Bambu. So I'm gonna turn this camera around, I'm gonna sit down right there, and I'm gonna make a video for you guys about my top 10 gadgets. So I'll be right back. And for you, it's instant, because you know, why not? All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed my little tour. That was terrible, I know. It's not really what I meant for. I meant for more of looking at cool stuff and looking slightly okay while doing it. So I'm gonna get into my top 10 tools. These aren't just tools, they're more of like useful things that I use on a daily basis that I think everybody should have. And then I have a couple honorable mentions that aren't necessarily required, but they do help a lot if you're someone like me who hates running out of filament specifically and having messy printers. I know my printers are messy right now, but there's not much I can do about it. I don't have a good way to clean that yet. I have to print stuff, but I'm printing a ton of things for other stuff. So I'm gonna get into this. The first tool that I recommend everybody have, and they come with your printer usually, is a pair of these. Now, these are plastic snips, or actually they're small wire cutters. They call them plastic snips too. I'm gonna leave a link for these down in the description, but not these terrible, terrible shitty ones that you get with the printer. Because as you can tell, the bottom of them, right, has kind of pushed through and made it to where these are uncomfortable to use. I have a very nice pair of Exolite. I've used these for years. I'm in the industry of electronics and instrumentation, industrial automation. That's what I do for a living. And I have used these on every single job site I've ever been on, and they are fantastic. I even bought a pair for my home. Get a pair of these. I will leave a link down in the description for some like this that aren't terrible. And these have been used for the past 6 years, and there's no rub through on the bottom down there, which is a massive difference. A lot more comfortable to use. I almost hate using these because of that. The second thing I'm going to recommend to everybody, glue. This is super glue. I hate super glue. I actually despise it. It can do layer creeping if you're not careful with how you apply it. This is liquid super glue. I do not use this unless I absolutely have to. or if I have something really small that can do a quick glue. Typically I use PLA Gloop. This is very expensive. This is about 30 bucks a jar. Very expensive, also works extremely well. But the main thing I use as glue is the Gloop, don't get me wrong. But I use Loctite Super Glue, but this is a gel form. I like this a lot more than the liquid form just because it doesn't tend to layer creep as much. And if you don't know what layer creep is, let me grab this little turkey right here, it's adorable. 3D printing obviously prints in layers. You can't even see these layers because of how fine they are, but for instance between the yellow and red, that's a layer, right? When you use super glue in the liquid form, it will actually creep into the layers and spread. So you have to be very, very liberal with it. You don't want to use a lot of it, otherwise you'll ruin the print with that little white cloud. Gloop can do the same thing. Don't get me wrong, not layer creep, but it'll leave a white cloud on the outside if you get on the outside of the print. So you try not to get it on a surface area that you don't want to have glued, but glue, super essential. I use it all the time for fixing or repairing or anything. The next thing I'm gonna go to, glue stick. I don't care what anybody says. I glue stick just about every single print. I don't care how large the base is. I do it to keep an even build plate, and then it washes off with water. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't need to. It does dry up pretty quick. But this is Bambu Lab glue. I think these are $17 for build plate glue. Highly, highly, highly recommend, especially if you have a bed slinger of any kind, whether it's an A1 Mini or an A1, or I mean an Ender 3, an Ender 5, even the new Ender 3 V2s, even Core XY printers. I mean, seriously, this stuff is amazing. Don't let anybody tell you you don't need it. I have used this for years, and it is the greatest thing ever when it comes to not having print fails. I don't care what anybody says. Glue your build plate. You can use hairspray too, or like actual Elmer's glue stick. I don't recommend that. It leaves a gross residue. This does not. It's very washable. Hairspray though is $4 versus $17 for this. Although I have used, this is the second stick I've used in the last 2 years. So I used one stick on, I had 8 printers at one time. So it lasts and you don't have to worry too much. And it's not every single print. You apply it maybe every 5-6 prints. It's not necessary for every single one, but it does help a lot. Highly, highly recommend anybody use that. The next thing I have is a pair of needle nose pliers. I actually have multiple different sets of these. They're very simple. The only thing you want to know is that these have grooves in them. They have grooves in the teeth to help grab terrible supports. Everybody knows that supports don't come off nicely the first time. Sometimes they come off beautifully and you never have any issues, but most of the time they don't. And these help a lot with getting it off. You do have to be careful though, because obviously you could yank a little too hard and pull something off you're not supposed to, but I highly recommend a pair of needle nose pliers. And I have multiple different kinds. These are just the main ones I use for grabbing supports and other things like that the little snippers can't grab. Up next on my little list of things that I think everybody should have, and this is kind of a big one. This is more of a, depending on how much of specific projects you do. I got this from Amazon. It's a Populo Dremel kit. Nothing special about it. It's just a cheap little Dremel. I use it all the time for little things, whether it be drilling out a little hole or maybe sanding down a specific spot. It helps keep everything simple so I don't have to reprint it. Like for instance, I usually use it if a print is more than like 2 hours long and it's just a small things off. I'll use that to carve out a little section and fix the problem versus completely restarting from scratch. So I use that a lot for that kind of stuff, and I highly recommend anybody grab a Dremel set. And it's not just useful for 3D printing, it's useful for a lot of other stuff too that you might do with the 3D printing hobbies, such as models or things like that, because it does have cut wheels in there and you can cut some parts off. It can cut through metal. I've done stainless steel tube with that and stainless steel rod with that. A little bit sketchy, you know, safety glasses heavily required, but it is something that is nice to have and I highly recommend it. I've used it more times than I ever thought I would. But yeah, it definitely does help. So the next thing I'm going to go to is, this is kind of a twofer. This is an electric driver kit. So it takes all those little bits, you know. I really only use 2 of the bits. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the electric driver kits, just because when they die, you can still screw them in, but they don't work as well. I actually prefer manual for a lot of it. Now, if I'm doing something where I'm driving a lot of screws in through hollow or solid objects, I will try to use this, but typically I use this, and I've used this for years, way before I ever even started 3D printing, and now I use it on a daily. And this just has a whole bunch of bits and my driver over here, and it even has a magnetic pad that comes with this that I use to store all my screws when I'm doing maintenance on my printers. Heavily recommend this to anybody who's going to use them. I will leave a link for these specifically, not this kit. Maybe they still have them, I don't know, it's just a little Chinese brand. You don't need anything special. Obviously, iFixit makes some very expensive kits. I've been doing electronics, controls, automation for years, and I've never bought an expensive kit, mainly because I've never broken these small ones, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Next up on my list is these pry bars. I actually got these in a kit from Alien 3D, who just sold his company to a different company, but I use these all the time. There's actually a set of 6. I don't know where the other 4 are. I don't ever use them. But these ones I use to press the little connections on the back of the Bambu printers to undo the PTFE tube. I also use them to scrape the build plate or pry supports. They're just a little flat blade pry bar. Not super strong, very cheaply made, but they're very, very useful. I use them literally every day. And I highly recommend these to anybody who's going to 3D print, especially if you do a lot of bigger projects. These help a lot with really crammed small spaces that always end up with supports in them, even though you didn't want supports in them. Up next, I'm down to my last 3 things here. So number 7, which I haven't been numbering these because quite frankly, it doesn't matter to me. They're not in any specific order. I use them all evenly. This is a set of calipers. Now, these calipers were very expensive. I bought them when I was in college, but any cheap calipers will work. I actually don't recommend these specific ones just because they're metal. That metal ends up scratching prints, which is never a good thing. I actually bought cheap $10 ones from Amazon. Maybe they were $12, I don't know. They were cheap though, and they're made out of plastic instead, so they're not as accurate as these metal precision ones are, but they're more accurate than anything else you're gonna get from a tape measure, and I highly recommend them. Obviously this one only goes to 150 millimeters, which kind of sucks because a lot of build plates that I have are 256 millimeters. So you do have to kind of play with it wisely, but I highly recommend calipers, preferably plastic so you can't scratch the plastic you're trying to measure, especially because I do a lot of things where I printed something once and I scaled it and I don't remember exactly how, so I use difference of scales using a caliper with difference of measurement to get the scaled value that I use, whether it's 2%, 3%, 10%, whatever it may be. Up next, I'm gonna choose magnets. I use these all the time. They're super useful to have. I ran out of my 6x2s. I use a lot of 6x2 and a lot of 6x3, but magnets are super useful to have. A lot of prints take magnets for adhesion of some kind. A lot of masks, for instance. So if you want to print masks, you're going to need these, or you could just glue them and hope your head doesn't get stuck in them. But highly recommend magnets. I can't tell you enough. I have just this one pack, and it's lasted me a long time. But I've also gone through several other different smaller sets of magnets. Magnets, big one. And my last thing that I think everybody should have when they're doing 3D printing in general, it doesn't matter if you have Bambu printers or what, screws. These specifically are M3s and they're longer ones. I can't find my smaller set of M3 that has M3, M4, M5, M6, and my heat set inserts, but highly recommend a screw set. And this is M330 to M350s with M3 nuts, but you don't need them that long usually. Most projects I found a 20 millimeter length is perfectly fine. Highly recommend screws though. A lot of projects you're gonna see out there are gonna take these, a lot of them. The only other thing I'd add to that as a caveat is like M2 or M3 plastic screws. Most of the time these little kits don't come with plastic screws, they're just straight machine screws, which are good, but they don't fix every problem, but they do fix a lot of problems. And they usually always come with the M3 nuts that are required to make these work. Highly recommend these to anybody. But then again, I mean, I highly recommend all of this stuff to you guys. My last 3 honorable mentions, which I think one of them is a requirement is a heat gun, and I'm gonna grab that right now, so I'll be right back. The closet's open behind me because this is where this was. My wife uses this more than I do, believe it or not. I highly recommend a heat gun to anybody. So this is kind of an honorable mention. I'm kind of past the point of things I use every single day. I don't use these every day. A lot of stringing I actually hit with a torch instead of a heat gun, just because it's not as hot. So for instance, when I say that, what I mean is the tip of this gets so hot you can't set it against anything, and it's kind of inconvenient. I don't like that. So I use a torch because it's quick and simple and can burn your prints. This will melt your print, but it won't leave burn marks. Most of the time I've gotten good enough with a torch so I don't burn it, but I highly recommend heat gun for people who are doing a lot of Pet G specifically. Pet G strings a lot, especially if it has any sort of moisture to it at all. So if you do a lot of Pet G, this is probably more up your alley. I use it mainly right now to take stickers off of things. My wife sticks stickers to all her water bottles. This helps take it off. Pretty simple. But I also use it for stringing and larger prints. If it's a really big print, I'll break out the heat gun, but not every time. Here's another honorable mention. This is a 2-in-1 vacuum. I use it to vacuum out the bottom of the printers. Pretty simple. Oh, that's just a little thing. I mean, it is what it is. I use it to clean out the bottom, the small parts that I can't reach with like my fingers. I use a little vacuum to get that out. I used to use a shop vac, but even that doesn't reach into all the tight little spaces. This is a little smaller, easier to maneuver, does reach into all the tight spaces. The very last honorable mention, and I use this probably the most, but this does not hinder my ability to 3D print like the other tools would out of the main 10, but this helps with knowing whether or not I'm going to have to switch spools. So this is an AccuCheck scale. It's a gram scale, and it's actually a pound scale. It goes up to 50 pounds. But essentially, I'm gonna get this down here. I'm gonna show you guys how I use this on a day-to-day basis. So I'm gonna set this up and show you how I use it, and then you can decide for yourself if it's something you want. I think most people are gonna want one of these, and I think you should do it. I think I got this on Amazon for like 20 bucks or something, and it's been phenomenal. It's been great. I love it. Now let's show you how it works. All right, so I have my AccuCheck set up. I'm just gonna turn it on right here. I'm gonna let it do its thing. It's gonna come to a 0, essentially is what it's doing right now. And here is what I use this thing for on a basically daily basis. This is a Bambu filament spool with the cardboard still attached, right? And it actually even has a little sticker on there. I set it on here. Usually it's 246. I guess today it's 244. We're gonna 0 that. And then I'm gonna take a full spool. I know I used this at one point, I just don't know how much is on here. And I'm gonna set it on there. Looks like there's 1.1 kilogram and 22 grams. So a little over 1 kilogram left. I have used this before. It's not brand new, but it is pretty close. And by using that spool as a 0, I'm able to tell how much filament is on there. So if I go to start a print, I don't have to worry about changing filament. Now it does get harder once you get to like Sunloose spools, or for instance even this one, because it doesn't give you a tear weight on here, so you just kind of have to look it up and guess. Or Protopasta is one I use a lot because I'm subscribed to their monthly newsletter. This one does have a tear weight there in the corner. It says tear weight 76 grams for the spool, so I know how much the tear weight is for that. And then Sunloo is the only one that I don't have a tear weight for, but I do keep a spare spool so I can tear weight that, and then it'll tell me. I also do the same thing for Polymaker. I keep a spare spool just for tear weight. And with that, I think that's going to conclude my video, but I'll swap this around real quick. All right, now that we're all swapped around, I'm just going to conclude everything right there. I just want to say thank you to everybody again for watching this video. If you liked it, consider subscribing, checking out some of my other videos. I'm going to do some reviews on my printers now that I have had them and moved them and saw how they did after moving and what to expect if you're going to move your printers. But other than that, I think I'm going to start uploading I think today's Sunday. I'll start uploading probably every Sunday until I get more into a rhythm and get more things set up. I have some pretty big projects coming here in the future for this room, but also other projects around the house. So I'll probably record myself installing some things around the house that don't have to do with 3D printing. So if you want to be here for those, great. If you don't, you can either choose not to watch them or you're going to watch them anyways. But as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check the description down below for some links. Hopefully they work. YouTube's been kind of weird, but I'll try to get some links down there for all of this stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Peace.